Hi everyone! In this video, we are going to style the map we've been working on, which is one of my favorite part in creating a map, because all the hard work of prepping your data are now over, and you can use some creativity and make your data pretty. From our last video, we have information on seniors above the age of 70 for each Toronto neighborhood. So now let's visualize that. To visualize it, go to the layer you want to visualize and click on the shape icon here. This will bring you to the styling panel where you can style by a particular field, and each of these fields corresponds to the tabular information you have. To view the tabular information, simply click on this table icon here, and you can see all the different tabular information by each neighborhood. So let's go back into the styling panel. Now remember, in our last video we ran the Enrich Layer tool and got 7 demographic variables related to age. We need to do some calculations to get a percentage of people over 70 for each neighborhood. To create visualization based on a custom calculation, we need to click on this drop-down menu where it says choose an attribute to show. Scroll all the way to the bottom to New Expression. When you do a new expression, you are essentially doing some calculation. So think of it as entering a formula on Excel. In this new window that just popped up, you have an interface where on the left side you enter your formulas, and on the right side you find the column name that corresponds to your layer that you could use as a variable, as well as inputting functions. Now, expression in ArcGIS Online are based on Arcade and contains functions that are quite similar to JavaScript. Now, I promise you there are no coding involved in this video. However, if you are interested to learn more and expand the capabilities of using Arcade in maps, please find the resources in the story map. To calculate the percentage of seniors over the age of 70, we must add all the 5-year age variables together that are above 70. So let's find that field name syntax on the right here. So I'm going to click on this feature that has the population of 70 to 74. Add a plus sign to add this group of field of 75 and 79. Add 80 to 84 and 85 and above. And then we're going to add brackets because that is the BEDMAS rule, which is brackets, exponents, division, multiplication, addition, subtraction. So enforcing these brackets will make sure that the calculations are done by adding these age group first and then going to the very end here, divided by the total population, which we also added as a variable last time in the Enrich Layer analysis tool. Click on that. So this is total population. Bracket that. So go back in the front, add a bracket. Notice if I am missing a bracket, there is a red box with an X showing that there's an error here. Now, so let's add that bracket in, go to the very end, and multiply everything by 100 to get a percentage. Now if I hit test, it would show you that this is the percentage of seniors over the age of 70 for a neighborhood inside that layer. So once we have the percentage, let's hit OK and apply the calculation to our styling. As you can see, the drawing style changed and went to a default of count and amount sizing, which is proportional symbology. What we want is count and amount color, which are the chloroplast symbology, and usually the darker the area, the higher concentration of the variable, which in our case are seniors. Let's explore more options for styling. We have the value of percentage of seniors above 70 visualized on our map, but going into more options here, we can actually change the color of the map and even the story it's trying to tell. First, you can pick a theme. You have the high to low, which highlights a range, above and below, which shows the values above or below a set value. You have centered on, which helps visualize a concentration of data set, extremes, and this one is the opposite of finding concentration, but finding outliers. But because we're showing a range, let's pick high to low. And from picking the themes, you can change the color of your map under symbol. So let's pick a pink here. I want to invert the color ramp here so that the higher the concentration, the darker the pink. Let's hit OK, and you'll see that it's reflected on our map. We also get a histogram right here to view and see the distribution of our values from the calculation we made on the concentration of seniors. Something to be mindful is that when you classify data, depending on which options you select, it would change the story you're trying to tell on your map. When classified data is left unchecked, you are letting the map to automatically default a classification based on the data values, so essentially you are letting your computer tell your story. So don't do that. It's always good to not choose default, and so let's click on classified data, and you'll notice that there are several options to classify the data. You have natural breaks, which are typically used when your data has a natural pattern to it. Equal interval, which is used when the data is grouped into set ranges. Standard deviation. This is used when you want to show the difference from the mean. Next, we have quartile, which divides the classification based on the number of values we have in the total data set. And this is frequently used when your data is divided by rankings. Finally, you have manual breaks. This is where you define how you want to classify your data. Let's say you have a particular spectrum or classification in mind. You can set that by manually doing it. After picking the method you want to classify your data, you can also specify how many classes are going to divide your dataset. For our situation here, I want to classify it with manual breaks because I have some ranges in mind, and I'm going to keep the default to 4 classes. Let me determine the ranges I want to show in classifying my data. I'm going to change this to 5% because 8.3 whatever percent looks really weird. I'm going to change this to 10%, 15. And now looking at the map on the right, we can see that it makes sense that we add another class so that we have another threshold to show anything above 20%. So let's make that change there. We'll change this to 5 and re-add all the threshold, 10, 15, and 20. So now we can see that there are 3 areas in particular that have a high concentration of seniors over the age of 70. The legend you see in the bottom right hand corner is what the legend would look like for the map. Let's customize the ranges so it makes a little bit more sense. I'm not a really big fan of these greater than signs. To edit the text, go into legend and simply click on the value or the range and edit that. So I want greater than 20%. So I'm going to go on ahead and remove the greater than sign and add a percent symbol at the end of each value. Once we're happy with the classes here, we can scroll to the bottom and look at the transparency. Transparency here is an option to customize how see-through your polygon is on a map. You can set it by a value based on a column in your table. For example, I have a New Brunswick election map from 2018, and the color of the map represents the party, but the transparency shows the margin in which the winner has won over the runner-up. So the less transparent a polygon is, the more they won, or the more votes they won over the runner-up, whereas the less transparent means that they won this riding by a close margin. So those are some ways to use transparency based on an attribute. In our case, we'll just make it an overall less transparent. So we'll give it a 25%. Next, you have the option to change the visibility scale, which is to adjust when the polygon should appear at a certain zoom of the map. So this is the zoom level you can set it as. We want this polygon to show up at all scale, so let's finalize our customization and leave it as it is for visible range and hit OK. Lastly, I get this question a lot, but if you go ahead and see my legend here, it still says custom. So how do I change this text? Well, to change that, we need to go back to our expression and edit it. So let's edit our expression by clicking on the pencil and give my expression a name because currently it's called custom. So let's edit that. And I want this text, percent of seniors 70 and over, to appear on the legend. So if I hit save, hit OK, you'll see that reflected on the legend. Now our map is styled. After we're happy with our symbology and style, hit done, turn off the table, move the extent of the map to where we want it, and hit save. Now, this is something I forgot to remind you, but if you hit the back button, your browser's back button, it actually doesn't save the map. So something to be mindful of is to not hit the backspace or the back button of your browser. To recap this video, we took our enriched layer and styled it based on the demographic variables that we added and put into an equation right here. And then we picked out a theme and color for the map. And here are other resources that teaches you how to create maps and change your map style. Next, we also learned about classifying our data, and we learned that depending on what classification we use, the map tells a different story. So we need to classify our data based on the value and data set we have. We also briefly looked at the visibility of a data and that we can play around with the transparency as well as the visible range, meaning when the layer should show up at a certain zoom. The last note I want to leave everyone off with is remember to clean up your legend and labels. After that, you have successfully styled your map.